little bit of a light crowd tonight. That's all right, though. There's some folks watching behind the camera. Everybody probably thinks it's too hot to get out of the house, I'm sure. Because we're at Lake Fork, and it is the end of July. And we've been complaining all year that the heat won't get here. It's finally here, ain't it, boys?
Way here.
Yeah, no doubt. And this is actually our last seminar for my season. I kind of shut down in the month of August to hang out with the two knuckleheads. Some of y'all are seeing on the couch over here. See knuckleheads. But anyway, so I'm going to hang out with them before they go back to school. So I'll take a little break. We don't do any content, so we won't have another seminar until the first Friday in September, and I'll make announcements about it on social media and all that. But tonight we're going to kind of go over general topics. I mean, just general fishing. Thing okay down there?
Yeah, man.
Get some alerts. We're just going to go over basically a general fishing report on how to catch fish right now on Lake Fork and the other lakes in the area. And as a way to say thank you to those of y'all that came out tonight, we brought some giveaways for you. I just reached in a box that I've had floating around my garage, and these are all brand new baits from 6 Cents Fishing, and I want to do some giveaways to some of the folks in the crowd tonight because we do appreciate you guys coming. So if you're behind the camera and you didn't come, you missed out. Before we do that, though, I wanted to, with this being kind of the wrap-up, this is the last thing I'll do for my job for about a month. I mean, I'll do some stuff from home, some computer work and all that, but as far as creating content and running guide trips, I won't do that for a month. So with this kind of being the end of my year, I do want to take time to say thank you to some of the people that make it happen. So bear with me here. But first of all these guys that work with me right here tonight, we got David Ozio, Cody Mays, and Cord Hudkins, 3 good friends of mine, also really good fishing guides out here on Lake Fork. You can book a trip with anybody that you see on my channel. You can always book a trip with them at yourlakeforkguide.com. You can call us, ask for them, or call us, just give us a date, and we'll put you with the best guy for you on that date that we have available. We're happy to have these guys, and we certainly appreciate them working with us. The different bait sponsors we have, from Smash Tech Custom Baits that works with us, Impact Shad works with us a little bit, Joe Spates and his flutter spoons, and 6 Cents Fishing is the biggest supporter of what we do at Your Lake Fork Guide of anybody, and that's why I wanted to give away some of their baits and kind of give them some publicity. And you guys know, if you need to order some 6 Cents Fishing baits, you can do it at 6centsfishing.com. Punch in that code, Your Lake Fork Guide, on the checkout screen. You'll get 10% discount on all orders. So, who wants some fishing baits?
Did you bring my 3 packs of ridgeworms?
I didn't bring you nothing. Who said me? You got to be up here present at the seminar to get them.
Come on, it's Aaron.
Well, come on upstairs and get you some. Swim baits and jig heads. Somebody throw the hand up. You want swim bait? Here you go. There you go, sir.
Take the ridgeworms out of there, Aaron, and give them to me.
You know,
Aaron,
just
take the ridgeworms out and give them to me.
Just because of how adamant you were about ridgeworms, I didn't even bring none of those.
Shocker.
So I got a brim-colored flipping jig and a brim-colored swim jig with stroker curl trailers to match it. There you go. My man raised his hand right there. Got a brim swim jig and a brim flipping jig with some stroker crawls to go with it. Green pumpkin burst on the stroker crawls.
Can I raise my hand?
No. We got a brim killer square bill and a shad killer square bill. That's the 3.8 mini mag. Who wants that? Anybody want square bills? Square bills right there. There you go, sir. There you go. Always, right? How about cold water square bills, flat sided square bills? You know, you'll have to wait a while to use them, I guess. There we go.
Yeah, Jerry being greedy down there.
Party tonight.
This is.
Come on, Aaron. You better jump in.
What about the blurple jig? Y'all ever seen me catch a fish on the blurple jig? We got blurple jigs and electric blue trailers. There you go, brother. Last thing. That's for Aaron. This is the grass flutter spoon.
Throw it and have him catch it.
Yeah, it's got an open hook on it. No, this is the grass flutter spoon, and it's got a single hook on the back, and it's kind of a smaller spoon, but me and Joe Spates worked together on this for almost a year. He's actually across the street eating dinner. I saw him right before we came up here. But we worked on that spoon for about almost a year trying to get the right spoon width and size and the right hook ratio. You can actually throw that spoon, if you have grass that's not matted up, you can throw that spoon, let it fall down in the grass, and rip it out, and it rips out of that grass hydrilla or coontail really well. And actually, until I caught that 11-pounder off of bed, my personal best came on that grass flutter spoon right there in grass.
I use it.
Up in the north end of Running Creek. So
I use the same
it's really good. It's really good. And it works in open water even with that single hook on it. And you can actually throw it in brush, and it kind of comes through brush pretty good and all that.
They don't sell that downstairs, do they?
I don't think so.
No,
I
they
think.
don't.
I say I've never seen it I've seen it on your channel, but never seen it downstairs.
Well, you back in the day when Joe had his shop, when we came out with it, you could buy them directly from him. But I don't think anybody carries them, so I don't know that you can actually get those.
I was using the 3-hook version of that on Rayburn
Yeah.
a few years ago, and kept hanging it up in brush piles. I lost 6 of them, but I did catch an 1180.
Yeah.
You know, on a 6-inch version, but it was a triple hook version. You know, so
Yeah.
I lost 6 spoons to get
Well,
the
that-
1180.
That design with that kind of narrower spoon body and that smaller single hook on there instead of a treble hook, it actually does come in and out of brush piles a lot better. You hang up a lot less. And when you do hang up, it's usually easy. You get right over the top and shake it, it comes out. But it was designed for grass. We took it, you know, we had some good deep grass in Running Creek and Birch and Glade that year when we were working on it. We took it over to Lake Welsh where there's always 10 foot of hydrilla, 12 foot of hydrilla. And we worked with it a whole bunch to get it just right. But it goes in and out of grass, and it's kind of a very unique deal. And I don't know anybody else that makes anything
You
quite
didn't
like
bring
it.
any for us.
No, I got plenty in my boat that are for me.
We're gonna raid your boat.
I keep that garage locked tight with you boys. Hey, I'm a former Marine. The security around that place is pretty good. That's all I'm saying.
They make those guns that shoot the nets out, right? We will net him and then
Yeah.
and then raid his boat.
Thank you.
You're welcome, brother, as always. All right, there's some giveaways and some thank yous to our sponsors and people that have helped us out so much. And one more shout out, one more plug. This is more of a plug than anything else, but as we go into this period where I won't be talking to everybody, this will be the last video you guys see on the YouTube channel for a while and all that. Man, the Fish Life app is going to stay current. We're actually doing updates this weekend, with the first coming on Sunday. So the Fish Life app will be current. We've already done some of the updates. The rest of them will be done over the weekend and then the first of next week. But even though we're not on camera talking to you guys, don't think the Fish Life app ain't there for you if you need it. If you don't know about it and you're watching on the YouTube channel, Fish Life app is an app that we built where basically a guy like myself on every one of our lakes, a guy like myself is giving you the most current and updated information you'll ever find in the world of bass fishing on any app. I put spots on Lake Fork, and I also do our power plant lakes out here. And I fish those every single month. I fish Lake Fork every week, and I fish the power plant lakes multiple times a month usually as well. And we give you the best spots that we can come up with, what the 20 best spots is, however many spots we have on that lake. And we give you what the area is, what baits are working best at that time. So it's going to stay current, and it is an unbelievable producer. I just couldn't even begin to explain to y'all how many messages we get that we just never post and publish because we get so many of them. The first year, you know, we were kind of putting a bunch of them out there, and then we kind of gave up because they come in such a big quantity on so many different platforms from the people that contact us, showing us a picture of this giant bass or showing us a picture of, you know, we caught 40 fish. I've never caught them in my life, or whatever it is. Just this week, I had a guy that was from Missouri or somewhere that said he was here for 2 or 3 days and literally hadn't caught nothing. And then somebody told him at the ramp about the Fish Life app, and he subscribed to it. The next day, he's holding an 8-pounder, biggest fish he's ever seen. They don't have anything that big where he's from, you know. So it's very legit. And our new OH Ivy package, OH Ivy has been the best big bass lake in the state this year. And we have a guy named Chase Brooks, who's a former FLW Tour Pro, and he's doing our spots out there on OH Ivy. And that's just kind of we don't have every lake on there because we're real particular about who we work with on each lake. And a guy like Chase who gets it and is all in on the program, that's who we want to work with. And it's done a phenomenal job. If you look at Chase Brooks' Facebook page, you'll see some of the fish that he catches, but also some of the fish people have been catching using the Fish Life app OH Ivy package. So if you need some help finding fish, be sure you subscribe to it. It will not let you down. I know you've used it quite a bit. Is it worth it?
Oh yeah.
I got a second place finish in JC fall
Yeah.
tournament last
And I've had, you know, high school kids text me about scholarship money they want. I mean, it's as good as it gets. So we highly encourage you to check out the Fish Life app. It's linked in the description of this video as always. All right, there's 10 minutes of intro and giveaways and announcements. So let's talk about fishing on Lake Fork right now. And you know, some of y'all know I've had a lot going on off the water in my life. And so this week I really haven't fished a whole lot. So I'm going to lean on my 3 hammers over here. So whoever wants to kick it off, man, what have you guys been seeing this week?
Well, if Ozio starts, I'll talk in about 45 minutes.
There you go, Dave. We're gonna
You
put
notice I paused.
Go ahead, Ozio.
It don't matter. I'm going to interrupt him here in a minute anyway.
I've been spending a little bit more time over on other lakes also, and chasing numbers. And I have a few lakes that we go to where we can catch, upwards 30 to 40 to 50 fish a day at some of these other lakes. A lot of them are school fish. A lot of them, they're just more reactive to baits and some of these other lakes. Here, I had a guy trip last week here, and it was a half day, and we caught 11, and I stumbled up on a school of them in like 20 foot of water. And I mean, we hit a lot of spots and then pulled up on one spot, boom, there they were, caught 11, bang, 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 just like that, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, that can still happen here deep, but I think that from what I've been seeing here lately is a lot of those fish are suspended in trees. If you have the technology to look at those trees, I think you have your best chance to grab a big, big, big fish. And so there's other guys out there that have all that technology, and they're taking advantage of that right now, So here also, I've been fishing some of the tournaments here lately, and a lot of those fish are in shade. And so we've caught quite a few to do well in these tournaments out of shade.
Boat docks.
So, boat docks and trees, that offer some shade, just wherever you can find shade, especially towards the afternoon. We had a tournament a couple of weeks ago, and we targeted those fish where we had caught them the day before, some big, big unders. And I told Curtis that I don't think those things will be there till the afternoon. And because the morning bite is different whenever you're chasing boat docks or wood or whatever the case. And I was exactly right. Those fish didn't bite till 1 o'clock. And when it did, we pulled up on some of those exact spots where he caught a 275, a 271 on a Friday. And then those fish didn't bite until 1 o'clock, till 3 o'clock. And so, we ended up doing okay in the tournament.
On the shade deal, what kind of depth are we looking at? I mean, I know you say you fish some boat docks, but you also fish some trees. What kind of depth are you looking for the shade
6
in?
to 12.
So you really trying to find docks that have the deeper water?
Yes, most of the docks that we've been catching, there was one in particular dock where the water was 4 foot, and we caught 4 unders out from underneath that dock.
Okay.
And then all the bigger slots came like in 8 to 12 foot on docks. And so there's not a whole lot of those deep docks around the lake.
No, they're pretty unique out here.
And they're unique, but that's where we caught all the bigger slot fish. I caught 2 6-pounders on light line, shocker. And, they'll bite, especially in the afternoon.
What kind of baits, what techniques are you using?
You know that I'm going to use a shaky head
Drop
or
shot.
I'm going to use a drop shot.
Okay.
And we target mainly that because we actually get more bites in some of those tournaments on that type of application, or Carolina rig with a very small bait. A very small bait. I don't use bigger baits because we're fishing these numbers tournaments.
Well, you're targeting fish under 16 inch.
I'm targeting the fish under 16
Because of
inch.
our special limit on this lake where you can only keep under 16 or over 24, you're targeting
I'm
small
targeting those fish, but I have a lot of clients that'll hire me just to give them an insight on what they need to do at an upcoming tournament. I'll usually
Pre-fishing trip.
Pre-fishing. I'll usually be booked up the entire week prior to the McDonald's tournament, Sealy tournament, or the Berkeley, sometimes a week and a half, and put those people on fish and there's been, when we get up into September, the patterns vary also, and we even caught a lot of those fish last year, some giant unders in 2 foot of water. And so it just depends on one thing, and the one thing I've noticed when I go into those places is shad. Is there shad there or is there not shad there? And the places that the shad have not been, I have not been getting bit.
As we get on into August and get to the end of August, in my experience, what you're going to see is less and less oxygen content in the water. The hotter the water gets, the higher the thermocline climbs, the less overall oxygen content that is in the water. And that oxygen becomes really the most important deal, even over temperature. Then it becomes the most important thing for the fish's survival and for him to feel good enough to feed and all that. And a lot of times your most oxygenated water is going to be real shallow. So, having fish at the end of August or into September that are in 2 foot of water is not something that a lot of people think about, but it should be, because when that thermocline starts climbing, the closer we get to a turnover situation, and even when we go into turnover situation, the oxygen really gets low. That shallow water a lot of times will be the most oxygenated water, and that's simply because there's always generally some little bit of some type of underwater submergent aquatic vegetation in that shallow water. It may not be enough for you to target and fish, but there's a little bit here and a little bit there, and it adds a little bit more oxygen. Also, anytime we get rain, the flow comes in and oxygenates that shallow water. Anytime there's a lot of wind, wherever the wind's blowing into, that's where it's going to churn the most and create the most oxygen in the water. So that really shallow water, especially in the very far backs of creeks, in my opinion, can be a really key deal. Is when you get in the dog days and you start to see that oxygen level decline, is that as that thermocline rises in the water column. I want to go back to, you said something about the timber, the fish suspending in treetops. And those treetops can be 5 foot below the surface, and they can be 25 foot below the surface, and all in between. And you really do have to have the technology and the electronics to identify those fish in those treetops. But if you do have that technology, I just want to throw out there, for me, when I find fish in those treetops, that 10-inch ridge worm on a quarter ounce weight is the way to go, because you can rig it weedless and you can throw it out there and work it up and down as slow as you want to through all those limbs in that tree. Wherever you're seeing those fish set up in that tree, you can work that worm down to them and bring it right back above them and drop it right back to them. And there's just no better bait. And talking about dog days of summer, a daggum 10-inch ribbon-tailed worm has been known to do it out here since the beginning of time, and it still does. And that ridge worm from 6 cents is just a new upgrade on the ribbon-tailed worm.
Yeah, you didn't bring me my plum ones either.
He's been, there's a website. It's called 6centsfishing.com, and if you punch in this code, you'll get a discount. It's called Your Lake Fork Guide. You get 10% discount. All right, Cody, what have you been seeing out there, brother?
Well, I think Ozio forgot to tell a story. We talked about. I thought it was pretty interesting about your line size change.
Well, this week was an interesting thing for me. I guided a guy Monday over at Athens. We went over there. We wanted to do something different, and we got over there, and there wasn't very many school fish at all. That's what we were after. And
They usually do on
They're up
Athens
10 or
this time of
20
year.
seconds, and then they go down. But there wasn't that many of them, so we started working points. And I think you've been over there recently, and we started working the stuff, the grass lines. Well, I have a drop shot. I rigged a drop shot with a 3/16 weight, and I had a 10-pound leader on it. And I use a leader with a small swivel to keep the line from twisting. All right. So the guy that I brought with me is a fishing magician. Everybody on most of them that follows me know who he is. And we were working some areas, and I caught one, caught a 3-pounder, caught another 3-pounder, caught a 4-pounder. We're going along, catch another one. And I'm thinking about this, and he's looking at me like, what? And I thought, do you let me see your rod. And so I said, what size do you have on here? He said, well, I've got a 12-pound leader on there. I cut it off. I put a 10-pound leader. Boom, 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 boom. He gets bit immediately, switching from 12-pound to 10-pound. Now, mind you, think about that lake right now is you can see 5 foot down. It's extremely clear.
And it usually is.
And
about the clearest lake
that
around.
made a difference. And I didn't have any 8-pound in his boat, or I'd have put 8-pound on there,
And
and
is
I
this-
think we'd have got more bites.
Is this drop shot you're talking about?
This was drop shot, and we were using a lightweight on the outside edge of the grass line, and that's how we were getting all our bites.
Let me ask you this question. Because you throw a drop shot a whole lot more than I do, because I don't throw one at all.
Mm-hmm.
But
We didn't know that.
yeah, 100 to 0 is a big difference. But anyways, in your opinion, when you have a 10-pound to 12-pound line difference, do you think it's which is more the bite getting factor? The fact that they don't see it as well, or is it the action that you get on the bait because you've got a lighter line that has less resistance on a finesse presentation like a drop shot? So is it the change in action with the lighter line, or is it the visibility change?
You are the the fish whisperer. You'd have to ask the fish for that.
I've always felt like it's the action. Like when you make like that small of a line change,
Yeah.
like from 12 to 10, if it was 20 to 10, okay, it could be visibility in my opinion. But when you go from 12 to 10, I feel like there's some type of subtle difference, especially on a really small finesse bait like a drop shot. There's going to be a little small subtle difference in the way that bait moves through the water now, the way it wiggles when the wind current hits it or whatever have you, when it pops out of the grass. You guys are fishing it.
I just think that, when you go to the lighter line, especially one other factor that wasn't mentioned was it was dead slick. Dead slick and big sun. All right, so when you get in that situation right there, because I fish a lot of tournaments, and when I get in a situation where I'm power fishing and I'm not getting any bites, I'm going to size down baits and I'm going to size down line. And a lot of times I got countless stories about how I've changed line before, and it's made an insane amount of difference. So I want to hear what these guys have to say as far as
Cody, I
what they
gave you a
do.
chance. Corey, what you got to say? What you been?
Well, I'll side with Dave on that because, I throw a drop shot.
Well, you're
pretty
another
decent.
tournament guy.
Yeah.
All three of you guys are so far.
Yeah.
Cody, you're new to guiding this year. Cord, you're new to guiding this year.
Yeah.
So all three of you guys have a heavy tournament background.
Yeah, and I'll side with like the bright sun and stuff like that, and I'll side with you. But I also say I think it's a little bit of both. I think
The action and the visibility?
Yeah, the visibility. Just that little bit. Especially if they're pressured at all, like a place like this. Like I've done like where I'll throw 12 and 12 and I won't get bit, and I'll go to like 8.
And they're pressured on that
And like
too
I'll go to
now.
8 and get a few more bites. I
Yeah,
mean,
it works.
like it makes you a little bit more nervous, especially when you're going around the docks or the brush or something like that. You know, if you do hang a 5, 6, 7 pounder on 8-pound test, you know, you're puckered up the whole time trying to get him in the boat. You know,
Yeah.
but to me, it does make a difference. And then there's
Well,
some days I feel like it doesn't.
Hey, you may lose one or break him off on that smaller line if he gets you in some grass or some brush.
Yeah.
But
You got to get the bite
You
first.
can't. Hey,
I would say
you can't. You can't get him in if you can't get him on, dog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So-
you got to get a bite before you can catch a fish. So, but I haven't been doing a whole lot of that here lately.
You've been mostly on Lake Fork, right?
Yeah, I haven't fished anywhere the past couple weeks but Fort, and I throw a drop shot every once in a while, and that's the only way I'll catch any small fish. And I haven't been catching very many numbers. I know y'all been more in the numbers game. I've caught 1 or 2 that were under the slot. I've caught everything the past 2 weeks between 5 and like 7 pounds. That's all I've caught.
Yeah.
But I'm only catching like 1 or 2 a day, maybe 3 a day if I land on them right. But those bigger fish they're suspended above brush piles is what I've got a lot, and
Okay.
they're moving a bunch.
They move a bunch,
I
yeah.
move a bunch, and they scatter really quick.
Especially this time of year.
I found like yesterday I had a trip and run across 2 brush piles where they were loaded.
That's one of the things I think that makes suspended fish so difficult to catch. And it's a little better when they're suspending around something like a brush pile. They'll be
Yeah.
a little more located and like locale will stay there. But man, suspended fish will pack up their stuff and go to a different neighborhood, Jack.
Well, especially if you get a bite. Like we had a bunch on a couple brush piles. They were like in a little group, and they were just kind of fan casting around. I hooked something giant on a crankbait that broke me off. I don't know what it was. I never turned it, but they had a bunch of bites.
Alligator.
It was something I was throwing a big plug and it hung and it made a couple big head shakes. I had to give it some line. It ran about 10 or 15 foot right in the brush pile and broke me off. Never turned it, never nothing.
You never know out here, dude. You really don't know out
I was
here.
like, I'm glad we didn't see it, otherwise we'd still be mopping my tears up if I had seen it. But I mean, like we were getting some bites, but they're a real finicky short striking, changing up baits on a Carolina rig or throwing that big, 8.5 to 9.5 inch divine shaky worm, been throwing that a bunch on a heavier head.
A magnum shaky head.
Yeah, big magnum shaky head to make bottom contact. Like I'm trying to just sitting there shaking it the whole time and just barely reeling to where it's just doing this. And they'll either obliterate it or it's like they'll thump, and before you can even pick up to see they're gone. Like they just hit it just like they were doing those swim baits on us up north that day.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of deal. They just run up there and hit it real quick and they spit it back out. And like we finally end up picking the crankbaits up, and I was then targeting the tops of the brush piles instead of digging the bottom.
So when you're throwing that deep diving plug, you're trying to get the one that's just going to tick the top of that brush.
That's how we end up getting a couple bites and catching some good fish
Make
or
'em
whatever.
react.
Is instead of throwing the
Yeah,
20.
if they slap at that treble hook bait, you can hang them. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean I've lost like 5 in the past week, so they're
Yeah.
floating around Lake Fork all over the place
There you
probably.
go.
But going from like a 20-foot diver to a 15,
Those have got to be the
16-foot
first
diver.
crankbaits to ever get lost in Lake Fork. Like, there's
Yeah.
no other crank. Yeah. Over under. Just quick interruption. Keep your train of thought, Corey. But over under, how many deep diving crankbaits are stuck under the water on something out there in this pond?
I'll give you a good scenario to that.
I got about 15 myself.
I mean, is it 100,000?
Here's an interesting
Enough
story.
to cover a football field.
Is it 100,000 or is it a
There's a
million?
certain spot.
I think, do we go 100,000 or do we go million? Like that's one of
This will
those.
give you an idea about how many there are. When the water was down about 3 or 4 foot, we were long lining crankbaits, 10XDs, on a certain spot every day and catching some 7s and 8s. This was several years ago. And I'd hang that thing up in a tree and get the plug knocker out and go over there and get up over the top of it and let it down there. And you're bumping it and you're trying to get it undone. You get it undone, all right, and you
Bring up 4 or 5 more.
bring up 2 10XDs that weren't even mine.
Yeah.
We did that 7 times.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
7 times a double came up on it when they wasn't even mine. So those trees have got to have an infinite number.
I
of
don't know if
crankbaits.
it was.
Ornaments down there.
I don't know if it. Yeah, there's a bunch of Christmas trees.
Christmas.
done. So I don't know if the picture was staged or not. We should look it up. But I think it was back during the 2014 Toyota Texas Bass Classic where Keith Combs broke all the records.
yeah.
It was a long line.
And he was long lining.
Inventory strong.
Yep,
Same spot.
that was what he caught most. Like 99% of his fish were caught long line at chartreuse and blue. Well, everybody was doing that this week here. All those pros were doing that week when they were here in 2014. And one of the guys apparently got hung up in a tree limb, and somehow old rotten tree limb broke the tree limb off. and he brought the tree limb in, like up to the boat. And when he got it up there, the whole tree limb just lined with like DD22s and 6XDs and every deep diving crankbait you can imagine. And he brought it in to weigh in, and they had a picture of him holding up this tree limb about this long, and it's just covered in deep diving crankbaits, the whole thing. I don't know how staged it was or not, but it was a pretty funny picture.
That was 30 people's double digits they lost.
That's right. That's right. Man, it's like that fish Corey said, man, I felt 2 head shakes.
World record.
Yeah.
What's your story?
I don't know how much Earth weighs, but I bet it's a record, dog.
It's a big one.
Corey, so we're deep diving crankbaits mostly over brush tops. What,
Yeah.
what kind of depth are you looking at there?
Here lately, I feel like they've kind of shallowed up on me over
They
the past
will.
like
They
2
will
weeks.
later on
They've-
the summer, yeah.
You know, like 2 weeks ago, everything was like 18 to 25. I've still got a few in some spots hanging around in that 18 to 20, but majority of my fish have been. I've got a couple in like 12 foot, like
Yeah.
12 to 16,
Yeah.
17 foot or whatever. But
That just
yeah.
tells you some of that deeper water is losing oxygen
Yeah.
as we get hotter, and they do that every year.
But like
It
going
does that.
bigger line and going a little bit shallower crankbait, so my crankbaits aren't running as deep. You know, instead
Right.
of throwing the 12, I've been spooling up with 15, 16, 17 pound and
And
throwing
you're
that.
doing that intentionally to make the
doing
crankbait
that
run shallower.
intentionally so that 16 foot diver's not hitting 16, 17 foot. It's only running 13 foot,
yeah.
13, 14 foot. And it's just hitting those top kind of softer limbs on those brush piles. And just whenever you feel it hit, sometimes you can just power through it and kind of hope it doesn't catch good, or you can just pause it, let it float up, and crank again. And usually when on that pause, you get that crank going.
Boom, that's what
Yeah, I mean, it'll
yeah.
just load up on you. And that's
one thing about that crankbait, man. And we said it when we fished together that last time, but if you ain't banging, you ain't cranking. And there ain't a whole lot better on earth to make a largemouth bass bite, whether he wants to or not, than when a crankbait's doing this and goes donk and bounces off something. There's something about when a crankbait hits something and deflects real big, it just makes them bite, even if they don't want to bite nothing.
And one thing I haven't tried that I've been kind of thinking about, and like one of my buddies back home, I actually talked to him today. He's like, man, you need to pick up that 1 ounce rattle trap, start chunking it out there. And I'm like, you know, I've actually been thinking about that because
That's a little different.
it
You're
runs.
talking about hanging up now.
Yeah, but well, there's a trick that you can do that they won't hang up as bad. Take that tail hook
Hold on,
off.
don't tell everybody.
Ah.
No. Okay, go ahead.
You take the tail hook off and you can run it through brush and stumps. It won't hang up
Really?
there as bad. Yeah, that and if you want to cut down. This is some nuggets I'm telling everybody right
You
now.
get on top secret guide
It's
trips.
top secret.
Yeah.
They're like these are top secret tournament trips.
Okay. Okay.
So you take the tail hook off, you don't get hung up near as much, and make it a line through. You ever done that?
Make it a line
Make a
through.
line through rattle trap. You know how rattle traps are good? Fish can throw a rattle trap real easy because
Yeah.
they're so heavy.
Yeah.
Take your treble hook off, leave a sprit ring on it. You know, it's got ring at the top and a ring on the bottom that's built into it. Run your line through it and through the bottom one, and then tie it straight through, almost like a line through swim bait.
Yeah.
It'll have the same action.
It'll
as the-
still vibrate the same?
absolutely
How
the
about that?
same. And then whenever they load up, that bait will run away from their hook. So all they got is a treble hook in their mouth.
Yeah, because
so
a
they
line
ain't
through
got no
swim bait,
leverage
you don't
on
lose any on a line through swim bait.
Nope, it's the same
Wow.
deal. It's the same thing.
That is top secret. That's good stuff there. That's really good
Just
stuff.
give everything away right now. But that's something I've been wanting to try that I haven't.
That's Oklahoma. Hey, them boys from Oklahoma throw their traps all wrong.
I was telling you when things get tough, but like
Yeah.
like you throwing around like stump flats in the fall and stuff. You know, like you
That's
be
pretty
throwing.
good.
Yeah, and it's usually if you get hung 9 times out of 10 it's that tail hook. You take that tail hook off. I mean,
How about
and
that?
like, I mean like, and it's not like your bites will get down less. It'll still run the same. And if you get prone throwing it, you can run that line through little situations. So.
That's awesome. That's good stuff
a
there.
little sneaky sneak.
I had a trick with that. I've used in tournaments before. Take and drill a hole in the top of the rattle trap, and then I'd fill it up with epoxy. A 1/2 ounce rattle trap, fill it up with epoxy so I, number one, stop the rattles.
Yep.
Go silent.
Go silent with it, but also it took a 1/2 ounce trap and made it 7/8.
Yeah.
And
you
so
didn't even-
you could turn it way faster.
Yeah.
You know, because it was in a small trap, you could turn it and did well in some tournaments. I haven't done that in a lot of years though, but that was way back at Toledo Bend.
Getting
Sam
old
Rayburn.
school stuff.
It's Sam Rayburn, yeah.
We're getting the Oklahoma tricks and the old school tricks. That's what we're doing. Maze, what you been doing? Give you one more chance since you swung and missed on the first
Well,
one.
now you don't get the weird stuff because y'all always know I fish weird, but it works because it's
Dude, you just live weird, if
I
we're being
am.
honest.
I do.
All
I,
right.
mean, I can't help it, man. If you knew who my daddy and mama was.
Yeah.
But now, so I'm still fishing structures offshore, road beds, submerged bridges, culverts, and then I'm going out trying to find schools of fish and finding them. But I'll pull up on these bridges and I'm not graphing any fish.
And you're fishing underwater bridges.
Yes.
So you're not seeing them on the graph.
You're not seeing them on the graph, but I'm still fishing it. I'll set up just like I always do, throw across that bridge top. Line up, which I don't have a 360, so I've got buoys. So I'll go across the one end. When I cross the backside, I chunk the buoy, come back around the other end, toss the buoy on the other side. So you've got them like this, so that's the way your bridge is running. Because for customers, it's kind of hard to tell them, hey, it's right there. So you give them a little visual, they can hit it every time. So we're throwing Carolina rigs, shaky heads, or jigs across.
You said
that
you're
rope.
throwing across the bridge, not
Just like
not
you were-
long ways with it.
No, across it like you're driving over.
Oh, so you're going the same direction the bridge goes. Okay,
Yep.
gotcha.
So a lot of those bridges all have concrete with rocks up out of it. Okay, it feels a lot like a shell bed, and so whenever you're dragging that bait through there, it's ticking, tick, 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 tick. And I have actually seen it on my not live scope, my active target. They had come up from under the bridge and come up there. They are so curious
To what that rattle
to
is.
what that rattle is. They will come out from underneath it and hit it every time. You don't even have to be fish on your screen. They're going to be there. So that's a little.
So they're hanging out underneath the undersides of these bridges. So when you can't see them up there feeding actively, you just have confidence there's fish in the shade underneath that bridge,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get to rolling the bait across the top of it, and it calls them up.
Yep. Yeah, I mean it's crazy, but
Man, we're getting all kinds of good secret stuff out here tonight.
Fish are in the shade. That's where I want to be. Hell, I spent like an hour the other day fishing up underneath the bridge just because I was hot. I'm almost in the shade for a little bit.
Yeah. See if there's any on these pilings over here, son.
and I'm still fishing brim beds. There still is a brim spawn going on. I mean, matter of
Wow,
fact,
that's crazy.
At Athens, that's where I caught that big fish. Was on a brim bed. So I pull up on. There's a fish life spot. What it is a hump. So I come over that hump. I graphed, and right on the back side of the hump was a brim bed. And then I turned, and then there was a brush pile, and it made a perfect triangle. And the way the wind was blowing, I just set up right in the middle, and I told my client, I said, "You throw up here towards that brush pile." And I said, "I'm gonna throw in these brim beds in this hump, and we'll just kind of switch." First cast into that brim bed, she smoked it, and there was probably 30 brim beds, and I counted maybe 10 brim still on it. I mean, you could see the little specks, in the brim beds. So there still is a brim spawn going on, but. As far as lakes with thermocline, Holbrook has already turned over. Athens has already turned over. There is
Whoa. You mean it has a thermocline?
it has no thermocline. It has come and is gone.
Huh.
So that we were fishing.
Well, in
lake-
that case, it'll probably set up a new one in August, I would imagine.
Probably.
Well, it's interesting about a thermocline. I mean, here last year in the summer, we never had water temps really over 86 degrees.
And so we never really got one.
And so when you don't have water that gets up into the 90s, when the wind keeps that top layer churned up down to 20 feet, the water stayed oxygenated. And I experimented with, back even 3 and 4 years ago, with lake turnover, just to understand it more. In September, I had a camera that has a temp sensor on it. And I went and took the 1 foot down, the water was 91.6. Let the cord down to 27 foot. What do you think the temperature was at 27 foot?
72 degrees.
What do you think?
82.
What do you think? What do you think? 88.6.
Yeah, it's not a
It's gonna be colder
huge
now.
difference.
There was not a huge
There's
difference.
not a huge
All right.
difference.
So, came back a week later, a cold front had came through. All right, so I wanted to check and see exactly what's going to happen. So I ran it down there. The surface temp was 87.4. Now, what do you think 27 foot was when I checked 27 foot?
The same.
This was something that was a great eye-opener for me, and it helps me to understand more about it, is that the 5 degrees or 4.5 degrees that it went down from the surface at 27 foot, the exact same amount. 4.5 degrees is what it went at 27 foot. A week later, I come back and check it. Every time, whatever the incrementation that it went down at the surface, it went down the same thing at 27 foot. So think about that. The water at the surface, when it cools, what does it do? It sinks. All right, as it sinks, it keeps getting heavier and heavier and heavier till finally something happens, which is I don't know, and it calls an upwelling. All right, that's when you start seeing the brown bubbles float on the surface, and that's when you know that the lake is in full turnover. And that's when, like we were talking a while ago, I'm going shallow for then on.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, when we fished Hawkins 3 weeks ago, it's the first time in my life, but I literally watched Lake Hawkins turn over. So the tournament started at 6. The thermocline was from the bottom all the way up, probably 10 foot deep, and so then you had your top 8 foot was clear with oxygen in it, right? By 8:30, it flopped. There was no oxygen. Thermocline was all the way up top. The bottom 3 foot had oxygen in it. Stuff was floating. Like you said, the brown bubbles, just trash everywhere, and it happened in a matter of a couple of hours. Never seen that before in my life.
Yeah, I mean, once it happens, I imagine it's got to just happen,
Mhm.
especially on a lake that small. And you're talking about thermoclines and, turnovers. Smaller lakes, it's always going to be more drastic. They're going to get hotter faster. They're going to get cooler faster. There's going to be more changes the smaller the water body is.
Well, and this, 3 years ago, I use this for an example. Cord's probably been fishing more. Now you guys have been fishing more than I have this week on this lake. But what happened was that when the water got to 92 degrees, 93 degrees, I noticed that those fish were no longer on the bottom. I'd burn a tank of gas going around the whole lake looking, and you could never find them setting on the bottom. They were all suspended up. Right, they were suspended, every single one of them, and then you get on structure where you had like trees or whatever the case, and I mean literally we could not. There were none on the bottom. All right, so this went on for a week. We had 7 days or 8 days of no wind, and the lake was dead slick. Surface temp 92 degrees. Thermocline started to form, and so I thought, well, this is going to be trouble. This was middle end of July. All right, we caught 3 days of 20 plus mile an hour winds, and I thought this is going to be interesting. All right, so what did that do? The wave action oxygenated the water, turned up that top 20 foot. All right, and I started looking down deep again after the 3rd day. Boom, those fish were back at 27 foot, and we had a field day. Caught them at back. They moved. They went from being more suspended. Once the water got oxygenated, they went right straight back down to the bottom. And continued to catch them in deep water until the water kept getting warm enough to when they moved up. Now you get later in August, what I found is, it's like what Cord just said a while ago, is that I found that those fish moved into brush piles. They're in shallower brush piles now. And I mean, I'm talking, 7, 8, 9, 10 foot. Big fish. So
all the deep fish that if I find that they're on the bottom, I'm like, oh, this is about to get good. They're sand bass or bar bass or whatever y'all call them down here. Barfish.
The yellow bass, the little ones.
Yeah, I mean they're decent size.
You have whites that are a little bit bigger, and then you have yellows that are like that big.
Oh no, like the whites or whatever, like white bass, sand bass, whatever. But yeah, like I've driven over some humps and stuff that are just kind of do nothing humps that fish usually set up on, and be like, oh yeah, they're good. Turn around, make a couple casts. No,
Sand bass.
yeah, I just put my rod down and go to another spot.
Yeah, welcome Lake Fork, dog.
Another thing I've been doing is like he talked about the fish being suspended in trees. Since I do have active target, I'm actually using. I'm not much on throwing a crankbait in the trees just because I don't want to lose them. But I've been throwing a black or a white spinnerbait. So just watching on my active target, bring it right by them, and I've been plugging a lot of fish out with that too. So, and I haven't. Most of the fish we've been catching have actually been upwards of 5 pounds and bigger. And I mean, I've caught some. You can see it. My freaking palm and thumbs and fingers are just tore up.
Yeah, when you get the teeth marks in the palm, that's when you're on the right ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, people that brag about their fish thumb, they ain't doing it right, dog. You gotta have that fish palm, or you ain't catching it right.
August and September, and I learned this the hard way in a Central Division BASS tournament many years ago, and the guy who won the tournament was throwing an 1.25 ounce spinnerbait, right, over the tops of brush piles, and he smoked them. He won by 10 pounds.
That's another old school.
Nobody could touch him.
That's another old school technique that just doesn't get the play that it deserves.
And I know
It's
the
that
guy personally.
Deep water, big, heavy
That's the old
spinnerbait.
Bill dance. That's
And I
like
tie every
dance back in the
August
day.
and
What was
early
it?
September.
What was one everybody used to throw? The Oldham spinnerbait or something? It was old.
yeah,
Oldham
that
maybe?
and everyone used to put the big single Indiana instead of Colorado.
Yeah.
Put the big Indiana blade
But
on there.
you throw that thing
Yeah.
out there, and in a July Bass Champs tournament, we finished second with 27 pounds one time, and that's exactly what we were doing. We pull up at distance from the brush pile. We knew it was right there. Throw that spinnerbait, count it down, run it over the top of that brush pile. 6 pounders, 5 pounders, 6 pounder, and so I'll always have those tied on in August and early September. And to say early September is why you say only early September, because usually it depends on when the first cold front rolls through and the first level of the water sinks. Then those fish are going to start to move once that water cools down there, and they'll change how they set up. And that's also about the time when thermocline happens, and I'm abandoning ship deep every single time. I won't even mess with that anymore. I'll just go shallow because I'll catch them shallow.
I'll tell you one thing about fishing that spinnerbait out deep. If you guys, I mean, it is a great old technique that really caught them back in the day, and it's just kind of a forgotten deal. But if you want to do that, one piece of advice: you have to fish that thing a whole lot slower than you think you do to keep it down there. Like with those blades, it's going to want to rise, and if you even just reel a medium retrieve, it's going to climb in the water column, and you're not going to be presenting that bait to the fish that you're seeing down lower and deeper depths. You really have to point your rod tip all the way down to the water and slow your reel handle down, basically where that blade's barely turning, to keep it down in that depth.
Well, in every cast too, and this is something you can learn. Just take it to heart, is that just get the countdown system going for you. Whenever you cast out there, you count it down to 12, whatever, and you're running. If you don't feel it touching it, or like Billy says, that thing will start rising, get to the point to where when you find the magic number and you're going to be consistent at turning that handle at a certain speed, and most of the time I'm going to be using a 6-to-1, 6-2, 6-3 to 1 gear ratio reel, and that'll play a big role in how that bait's going to act with that spinnerbait, with it lifting, but you'll find a magic number, and then you can usually just go all around the lake and use that same number.
I've done some similar stuff, like pre-spawn on lakes back home, and would do like a stop and go, like be cranking it, and like it would feel like off some points, like pre-spawn stuff, it would want to drift up and just click it and free spool it, let it fall back down until it hits, and cranking it, go thump, 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 and all of a sudden you'd feel it stop hitting, give another crank or two, and just click.
Almost like yo-yoing up off the bottom.
Yeah, almost. I mean, like you're moving it 5, 6, 7 foot at a time.
Yeah.
It'd click, 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 and go off, and you just let it dive. Now if you're bringing it uphill, it's different. It's obviously easier to keep contact. But
Jimmy Houston made a whole lot of money for a whole lot of years doing this. But dude, the one thing about a spinnerbait is, golly, is it a diverse bait. Like you can throw that thing
anywhere
and throw it with so many different types of speeds and presentations, from burning it to slow rolling to in between to twitching it and jerking it and stroking it and letting it fall. I mean,
And changing blade sizes.
changing blades. There's
gives
so
you
much
more
you
variety.
can do. There's so much you can do with a spinnerbait. There's really almost no bass fishing situation where you can't use a spinnerbait effectively.
Now, when the elites were here back in, was that April or May this year? I
It's
can't
April this year.
April, okay.
It'll be May next year.
I was out at Lake Welsh, and there was a pro out there before they actually started the practices, and they were out there filming him. And I cannot remember which one it was because it was kind of a newer guy. And he was on that grass edge on Welsh, and he threw that spinnerbait, and he burned that thing up to the top with them willow blades to where they were hitting the top of the water. And I'm telling you, every time it came up and hit the top of the water, they smashed it. I mean, that was impressive.
That's funny you said it, because Heath Taylor is probably like the ultimate Lake Welsh hammer. He grew up right there in Pittsburgh, and he's the guy that owns Smash Lake, makes those baits. He's a way underrated fisherman. Like, this joker's stupid good at fishing. And one of the first times I fished Lake Welsh with him years ago, he pulls out this spinnerbait and is flying this thing across the surface and is whipping my butt. He's like, dude, that's a Lake Welsh thing. They have bit this since the beginning of time. Like, you burn that spinnerbait and hit that surface, they'll hit it. So it's funny. I do also want to point out that I have been hole jumped by the entire professional bass fishing world when it comes to Lake Welsh, because nobody was filming any TV shows out there till we started making videos out there. And then now Greg Hackney's out there, Mark Zona's out there, whoever this, Hank Parker's out there.
Edwin Evers.
They all hole jump me, dog. I've been hole jumped by all the elites. You elite series boys, stop hole jumping me. Dang hole buzzard. Pro level hole buzzards. That's all it is.
All right.
Questions.
Questions. I was going to
You
say.
should be happy about that.
I should be happy about that?
Yeah,
No, man. Fishermen are never happy when somebody fishes their
I
area.
would be. You know why? Because they watch your channel, man.
They do. The fact that, yeah, that's true. That means they watched my stuff. You're right. That's a good point.
Question.
So, whenever you get the lakes that have already turned over, they'll have 2 turnovers.
Sometimes. So what'll happen is,
that pretty common?
no, it's not
small
common.
lakes.
It's not
Small lakes
common.
will do it twice sometimes.
Well, and I've even seen Lake Fork do it twice. What happens is, a lot of times if it gets hot enough early in the year in June or July, June or early July, to set up a thermocline, and then you get like a stretch of cool weather or cold rain, it causes a turnover. But then if you have another prolonged period of heat in August, it can build up another thermocline. And then when it cools off in the fall again, you'll have another turnover. So it can happen. What happens in those cases, in my experience, is both of those turnovers are usually minor turnovers. Like if you get a stretch of time from, say, the end of May or June, we start getting thermocline, and it just stays hot all the way, like it does sometimes around here, stays hot all the way through the end of August into September. Now you've got 3 months of thermocline build up, hard thermocline, where below that line it's just nastiness, right? When that turnover happens, it's nasty. And the settling from that turnover in that situation can last 2 weeks, 3 weeks sometimes before the water column will even back out and get clean and fishing will go back to normal. When you have a turnover that happens early in the year and the thermocline's not real hard, the turnover result is a lot more minor and it clears up a lot quicker. So when you have two, it's usually two small ones, and there's really not that big of an effect. If there is a negative effect, it's just for a few days, maybe a week at most, and then you may have that again later in the year. But you won't have that really bad. It's when you have a thermocline from like May to August or September, then you're going to have a nasty turnover that's going to last multiple weeks. That's just what I've seen in my experience.
We see it 92.2 back there, and it's turning over because we're getting scum this deep on the side of the boat right now. So
In shallow water?
Shallow water.
7, 8.
Yeah. So you're seeing 92-degree water temps?
92.
If you're seeing 92-degree water temps, you may have some stuff in those middle to shallower depths that's coming off the bottom. But the lake, in my opinion, I don't think the lake is turning over when you have 92-degree water. It's got to start cooling back down.
It has to sink.
It has to start cooling back down for it to actually. And usually in 7 foot of water, there's not going to be. You may be experiencing a little bit of a mini turnover in 7 foot of water, or churning in 7 foot of water, just from a morning cool down or something like that. But as far as like where the lake's turning over, that can't happen, in my opinion, at 92 degrees. I've never seen a lake turn over in the 90s. Not like the big lake, the main lake.
And there's a good chance that that's some type of algae.
You talking about way back?
No, just past Garland.
Yeah, and see that's. Yeah, and I mean the deepest water up there is what, maybe 12 or 15?
In the creeks.
Maybe in that section, that may be the deepest water is about 12 foot probably.
12, 13.
Yeah.
This time.
Yeah. So I don't think, I mean, you may have some churning going on up there from morning cool downs and little small sections of it, but as far as it being like where it's turning over out here, that can't happen when the water temp's in the 90s. I don't believe it can.
No, I don't think so either.
Have you thrown the new metal bill 6 cents?
The new Axis 2.0 is legit. It's good. The old one, the one they came out with first, it wasn't bad. You just had to fish it so slow. The action with that road, with that pivoting bill on it, was so erratic that if you reel it even like what I would consider medium, I fish a crankbait pretty fast. But what I would consider like a medium retrieval on a crankbait, it would roll over on you because it would just get to wobbling too much, and every crankbait on earth, the goal is to get it out of control right up to the point where it turns over and then back it down a little bit on your bill to body ratio, right? That's the goal for every crankbait on earth, because the more it wiggles and the more it wobbles and wanders and does this, the better they bite it. But you go a little bit too far and it flips, it starts doing this, starts flipping over the helicopter on you. And the Axis, original Axis they came out with, would do that if you fished it medium to fast. You had to fish it very slow to keep it, and it was great at that slow retrieve. I'm just not very good at slowing down that much, so I didn't fish it very often. The 2.0 is better, definitely better. It's a crazy action on the crankbait. It is a crazy action on the crankbait.
And just so y'all know, 6 cents just restocked almost everything.
Yep.
If y'all been waiting on stuff, it's back. So,
Yep. Tell them one more time, Cody. When they go to 6centsfishing.com,
you type in your Lake Fork guide.
you get a
They check
10%
it out.
discount.
That's
That's
right.
right. That's right. All right. Any questions?
Yeah, one more.
Yeah.
So, like y'all were saying, with those suspended bass, whether it's in a tree or above a brush pile, and you don't have active target or
Yeah.
any of that good, awesome, expensive technology, would a good way to cover water and try to get bites, like a divine swim bait, fish through there? Would that
Not on that top hook jig head, and to get
Like,
it
no,
down,
just, I'm talking about weedless stuff.
you're going to have a hard time getting that bait deep enough and fishing fast. You would almost be better served to pitch a 3/4 ounce jig in there and work it through there just to move faster. And then if you get a bite, once you get a bite, now pick up a 10-inch worm with a 1/4 ounce weight and pick it apart. Or if you want to slow roll a swim bait through there, at that point, go ahead. But you're going to get that swim bait on a weedless belly weighted hook to get it down 7, 8, 9 foot and keep it there. I mean, you almost can't and keep the tail kicking. I mean, that's a very difficult setup to fish that deep. You have to fish it so slow to keep it down that the tail almost won't even swim. So it wouldn't be my choice for it. That wouldn't be my choice for it. I would take a 3/4 ounce jig. If I wanted it, no technology, and I wanted to cover flooded trees, right? And I knew where some good flooded trees were. I would pick up a 3/4 ounce jig and pitch it and work it in and out, fast as I could, keep going. And the second I get a bite, now I'll slow down with a 10-inch worm. He's going to tell me to throw a drop shot of it.
No.
Oh, okay.
Take a 1/2 ounce beast hook, and then you can if the one where you can move the weight a little bit, move the weight up, and then take a casting sinker, go over the hook, and then have the casting sinker, a 3/4 ounce or a 1/2 ounce casting sinker right behind it, and then make it weedless.
Yeah,
now throw it out there and then go ahead and count it down and get it to where then you can bang it through the top of the brush.
Yeah, that's true. You can fit those casting sinkers on those.
We
on
do
the
that in
belly of those
tournaments
swim
too.
hooks. Yeah,
I
that's
never
a good
thought about
point.
doing that's so.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I got another little nugget.
Go ahead.
Fish a big shaky head like a hair jig through them brush piles out deep.
Hey, here's another nugget in and of itself. Fish a hair jig, dog. Like,
Hey, no, like a hair jig. Don't get the hair jig.
like
shit away.
nobody throws like very few people throw a hair jig very much at all on this pond.
It
And
just
I'm gonna tell you, in
screws the
August,
things a lot.
they eat the hell out of a hair jig.
And I had
out
a
here.
client catch them on a hair jig here
They eat the
in
fire out of a
August
hair
one
jig
year
out here.
on a deep point like that they were up at 20 foot. And he asked me about that, and I said, "Yeah, I got some." Tied it on, and I'd be dipped in.
They
it.
eat a hair
He
jig out
didn't
here,
get.
boys.
Well, I was
They
like,
do.
"Wow, I would have not dug it
I
out."
think anywhere they're feeding on gizzard shed, they love a hair jig. If you look at like
It's
Toledo
so much more
Bend,
subtle compared to
Toledo Bend, Rayburn, the
big
Tennessee
crankbaits
River
and stuff
Lakes,
all the time.
Kentucky Lake,
big
Gunnersville.
swim baits. I mean, I'd rather catch them all.
Any lake that has a good population of gizzard shed, when they get super hot in the summertime, they eat a hair jig real good.
But see, this is not the right venue to be talking about all this, right, Gord? Because I mean, these are things that we'll do a lot of times, to use something like that because they don't see hair jigs on this lake at all,
No,
at all.
very few.
And so to have one, somebody looks at it and sees it in your boat, like, what the?
Yeah, you'll get people that, what is that? I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
That's a
But it does
bite
work.
getter is what it is. You about to catch a head on it.
Something I tried the other day. So when I'm out with my customers, I will throw what they're throwing. We're always changing up to see what the next bite is. But a lot of times I'm throwing a big bait because I ain't trying to be hateful, but I've caught my fair share of underfish. I'm throwing a big bait. I want a big fish.
Right.
I may go all day and not catch nothing till the end of the day and then boom. But that's just how I want
But
to
then
be.
you might get your customers on another bite that y'all discovered.
Exactly. With bigger fish.
Yeah, I think we all do that a little bit, right? Like you give your customers what you think is going to get bit the best that day when you start out, and then you fish something else in front of them. And then if they start biting what you're throwing, okay, now you can hand your customers that bait.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
might
they
do it a
Yeah.
little different. I ask them what's their goals, and that's what I want to know starting the day, so I can plan the day in my mind.
Right. Well, yeah.
Some people are. I have a lot of clients that they don't care about catching a big fish. They just are out there for a good time. They just want to catch some fish, get their line stretched.
Yeah, but whether your customer wants that or your customer wants trophy bass, when you start out the day, you're still going to give them the bait you have the most confidence
Absolutely.
in them succeeding on,
100%.
and then you're going to maybe experiment a little bit outside of that,
And,
right? And I
yeah.
think we all kind of do that a little bit.
So talking about them suspended fish, and this is crazy because we were out there fishing and got on a big group
Are you
of
saying
them.
tail spinner again?
No, could not.
Hey,
Hey.
Could not get these things going, okay? And I was being a smart bud, okay? I was like, a little bit of Zach Watts came out in me, okay?
you threw a wacky worm in deep water. That works too.
It
You
was
put- you put the
16
whole-
Just suspended?
Bro.
Just popping it?
With a 16th to 8th ounce
Bro.
nail weight all the way in it, and we started killing them.
I will never
So
forget
you're just
the.
counting it down to where the fish
Yeah.
were below and just working it.
I'll never forget the first time. Not the first time I was fishing with Zach, but I'm pretty sure it was the first time I made Zach leave the bank because Zach likes to just fish shallow and finesse and shallow to mid depths at most. The first time I had Zach in 20 foot of water, I turned around and he's throwing a wacky worm and we're in 20 foot of water. He's like a little trick worm, like he throws up shallow. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? The bait's never even going to get down to me. He goes, no, man, I put the whole nail weight in it. It'll be fine. And he kicked my butt.
The guy I used to fish
stupid
Rayburn with
wacky
did
worm
that.
right
He was a master at the wacky worm. We won a lot of tournaments on Rayburn over the years with a wacky worm. And I mean, there was a time when we were fishing this one tournament, and he is stomping a mud hole in my rear. And I mean, we're fishing a tournament as a team, and I'm watching him, and you know, he caught another one. And I happened to glance over there, and this is back before they had the big nails. I'm watching him. He stuffed 3 nails in the end of that head of that worm. And I was only using 2. That one extra nail made all the difference in the world to get that bait down to the zone to where those fish were. And that's how he was catching them. And I was like, and you didn't tell me that? You know, here we're partners in a tournament.
He's like, no, I got it covered.
He just wanted to kick my butt. That's all.
I got it covered. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, you know, and so, but I mean, the thing
You
is,
just hold a net, man.
the versatility of what he's talking about, the 1/16 versus the way my partner, he put, you know, 2 ounces of weight in that head and that wacky worm if he could get it, you know, get it in there. So there's no, it's no holes barred when it comes to what you need to do to get the job done. And, you know, I mean, getting creative sometimes is what you need.
I think that's a few things we've talked about tonight, whether it's this or the spinnerbait or some of the other stuff we talked about is, you know, the trap deal Cord was talking about is, man, there's so many different ways. And it's probably, I think, most of our favorite thing about this sport is you're never necessarily wrong for doing what you're doing. Like, and we all have our own little things, our own little ways to do it. And something that you have confidence in can mean a lot. Like, Zach, when I took him out there and he throws that wacky worm in 20 foot of water, I would have never thought to do that. But Zach is so confident in that wacky worm that he's going to do that. He's going to make an adjustment and present that wacky worm in a way that's effective, and he's going to fish it with confidence, and he's going to get bites, and he did. And it's the same way with a spinnerbait or anything else. You can, a lot of these techniques, you can adjust to the area you're fishing. I guess what I'm trying to boil this down to is the art of bass fishing is really about locating fish, number one. That's the most important part. You have to locate fish. If you can't find fish, you can't catch fish. But once you locate them, it's about taking an inventory on the cover and structure in that area and figuring out ways that you have confidence in to present a bait to them as efficiently as possible. That's really the whole art of this sport. Whether it's with a worm or a crankbait or a swim bait or whatever it may be that you like to throw or you want to throw in that situation, you find the fish, you take inventory of cover and structure, you present what you want efficiently, as efficiently as you can. That's this game. That's the whole game in a nutshell. Because there's always a different way. I mean, you never, every once in a while you'll see like a professional level tournament where most of the guys are doing the same thing, but they're never all doing the same thing. And I'm talking about the guys that are leading. They're all right there at the same weight, the same level. They're never all doing the same thing. There's different ways to do this.
I mean, look at Lake Fork on the Elites this year. All your top 5, every one of them was doing something different. There's one of them live scoping a jerk bait. Livis, he was throwing a big top water up shallow, and then
there was a sight fish. I mean, Austin Felix was sight fishing.
Yeah, he was
up there.
And then Zaldane was throwing big
Throwing
live
strike
baits and
bait,
back
throwing
drafts,
live
you
baits,
know?
yeah.
I mean, and they were all catching 25 to 35 pound bags every day.
Yeah.
You know?
There's definitely always different ways to do it. So, y'all got any more? Go ahead.
So I've new to guiding, so I've started buying some 6 cents rods. I just kind of want to share this with y'all. I didn't know which way I wanted to go, so I bought several different 6 cents rods in all their different models. And my favorite by far is the Century, but the next one that is least inexpensive, that would be great for y'all to get and try, is the new ESP. That is actually a really.
I haven't even had that rod in my hands yet, but I've heard a lot of good things.
I love that
I
rod.
picked one up today at Lake Fork Resort.
They're good, and they're not as expensive as the higher end ones, but
What's the retail on?
179, yeah.
Yeah, they're right there about the same price as the Divine rods, aren't they?
Yep.
Yep.
And oh man, they're great. So that's probably what I'm going to go with. But I figured having one of each, that way my customers can use one of each, and if they want to, that way they can fish with them. But
well, to tie into that, something that I've been talking about, and this is supposed to be, I guess, kind of top secret till we release it, but I'm not really great at secrets, so we'll go ahead and tell it anyway. But we're actually, I'm going to go to work with 6 Cents, and we're going to build out something on their website And the first thing we're going to do is rods. And so basically, I'm going to go through all their rods, and I'm going to get some of the new ESP rods because I've already fished all their other lines. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick, okay, this is my favorite jig rod. This is my favorite chatterbait rod. This is my favorite sight fishing rod.
Drop shot.
Cranking, whatever. I don't know that we'll even have one in there for drop shot. No, I'm just kidding. Of course we will. Of course we will. But anyway, I'm going to have a selection of rods, and we're going to build out a page where you can go in there and be like, man, I need me a frog rod. Well, your Lake Fork guide says that's the frog rod to buy right there. And I'm going to keep in mind, okay, with a frog rod, we don't need it to be as sensitive as we do a worm rod. Like, I'm going to try and pick the right budget-based rod on the technique, and it's going to be a place where you guys watching will be able to go and look at and have my recommendation on this is the best rod you can have for this technique, most bang for the buck, everything all in, the way I would buy it if I was a guy spending my own money. So that'll be on there. And then we're also going to take the baits that 6 Sense has, and I'm going to pick like my top favorite baits that I use the most, and we're going to put those on the page as well. So you'll basically have the Your Lake Fork Guide collection of my favorites, approved 6 Sense stuff on their site. And I don't know with the rods, I don't know if we're going to make them like a true signature series where we do it like that, where my logo goes on them or anything like that, but we might. There's some discussion about that too. So we got some stuff that I've got. As much as I'm off, like no guide trips, no content, I got a lot of work to do in August. So I'm never really off, ever. Am I, Ty?
Nope.
Your dad works all the time, doesn't he?
Yes, sir. And, oh, no.
No. All right. Any more questions? Well, hey, man, thank you guys for a tremendous year. I know it's not the end of the year, but for me, it's kind of the end of the year. That way, I kind of look at September 1st as the beginning of 2022 for me. I know there's not a whole lot of y'all here tonight, but I sincerely appreciate everything. It's been a really great year when it comes to everything that's gone on with the Your Lake Fork Guide stuff, as it has been every year for the last 4 or 5 years. And all you guys watching on the channel as well. I mean, I couldn't do any of this. None of us could be here doing what we do and getting to live our dream of being on the water every day if it wasn't for all of y'all. So thank y'all very much. And also a big, huge shout out and thank you to Lake Fork Marina for letting us host these seminars. We will be back here in the beginning of September. Boys, thank y'all. Cord, Cody,
Yes, sir.
David, thank you very much. And we'll see y'all not in 2 weeks, but in like a month. Thank y'all.